Hey everyone, this is Bill Krieger from the Veterans Archives podcast, where we preserve and share the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really, anywhere you choose to get your podcast, you should be able to find us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to help us reach more veterans and supporters. We are a nonprofit, and this service is completely free for veterans. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Spread the word, honor our heroes, and join us on this mission. Follow, share, and tune in, because their story should never be forgotten. Learn more at veteransarchives.org. We'll see you there. So today is Thursday, April 24th, 2025. We're talking with Pat Knight, who served in the United States Navy. So good afternoon, Pat.
Good afternoon.
It's great to see you here today.
Great to see you. Thanks for coming.
Certainly. It was a wonderful drive here, actually.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful, beautiful place to be. We'll start out pretty simple this afternoon. When and where were you born?
I was born March 31st, 1948 in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, which is near Gettysburg.
Okay.
In central Pennsylvania.
All right. So we're going to figure out how you got to Michigan then as we go through this conversation. So did you grow up then in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Okay.
My mother's family all lived together, and they all moved in mass. We lived in a big house in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, all of us together on Green Street. Mm-hmm. And then my mother's family, most of them moved to the Poconos. My father was different. We moved to a city called Sunbury, Sunbury, named after Sunbury, England. Actually, in Sunbury, there was a former fort, British fort there, and a British prison and stuff. And that's where I graduated high school.
Okay.
In 1966.
Now, did you have brothers and sisters? And
I had 3 brothers.
Your mom must have been a very busy person.
Yes. And they're all younger than me. I was the oldest.
Uh-huh.
Actually, they're half brothers, but they were never considered that. My father's my adopted stepfather, but he was a fabulous, fabulous man. When he first married my mother, he grabbed me by the scuff of the neck, and said, "Come on, you belong to me." And when he always introduced us, we were numerical. I was number 1. My brother Bert was number 2, et cetera, et cetera. So I was always, I was always considered that, and but I was very, very close to both my mother and my father, mm-hmm. and they took. I did okay in high school, but it was. I don't know if I should continue. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The draft. Vietnam was exploding then. I graduated in 1966 from high school, as I said.
Right.
The draft was exploding, and they didn't have the lottery draft. They had the straight up draft, and those that weren't in the military, weren't married with children, or weren't in college. This was a city about 15,000 people. Mm-hmm. And I got my half day off school in March of my senior year to go register for the draft. And they were sucking people up left and right. And everybody was, and they were drafting Army, of course, but they mm-hmm. also, I don't know if you were aware of it, they drafted into the Marine Corps.
I didn't realize
Oh,
that.
Yes, they did. And stuff. I think they counted it off as a joke, whether they did it or not, but they went 1, 2, 3, Marine Corps, 1, 2, 3, Marine Corps, 1, 2, 3, Marine Corps. And so I enlisted in the Navy to take care of and probably, go to school and stuff like this. But I was having trouble with a girl when I was growing up, and I enlisted in the Navy with the promise of nothing. I knew everything, and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
And then when I was, I graduated high school June of 1966, as I said before, and I went in deferred, and I went on reserve duty until December, and I got sent to Great Lakes Naval Training Center in 4 days before Christmas.
Oh, let's talk about that. So So Great Lakes, which is in Illinois, north of Chicago, it's wintertime and you're there for
It was the
boot camp.
coldest winter in the history of Chicago, they said.
I'll bet. What was it like for you stepping off that? Did you take the train or were you by bus?
I took a bus from Sunbury, Pennsylvania to Harrisburg.
Uh-huh.
I got on a train. I rode the train to Chicago, and then I rode a local train to Waukegan.
Yep.
And then I went from there to boot camp and stuff like this. But my mother is funny. She used to, when I was in boot camp, she would mail me packages, and she used to say, she was a drama queen. She used to say, when I would go to the post office to mail you packages, the tears would freeze to my cheeks.
Oh, I could picture a mom saying something like that.
And like I said, I had, my scores were great, but I was mad at the world. Like I said, over a girl.
I wish I had a nickel for every time I started a statement with, I had this problem with a girl.
Yeah.
And I made this decision because of it.
But I was blessed somehow. I don't know how or anything else. I guess when I came out, my scores were great in the Navy. My scores were great in boot camp. And when I came out, I was sent to Imperial Beach, California. It was a Naval Auxiliary Air Station at that time, Naval Auxiliary Air Station in Ream Field, Imperial Beach, California, part of San Diego.
Okay, so it's out by San Diego.
It is, right. It's just south of San Diego. It's like Chula Vista in that area. It's right in there.
Okay.
And so I went to Helicopter Combat Support Squadron 1 there, and I spent from April until end of September into October there. They formed a new squadron in HC7, Helicopter Combat Support Squadron 7, which was, at that time, it was dedicated combat search and rescue, home based in Atsugi, Japan, big naval air station there. And I left there left California in September of 1967 and went to, the base was formed, it was at Atsugi, Japan. And I went there, and I spent 2 years there at Atsugi, and I came home in October of 1969.
So let's talk about some of your time in Japan. I know prior to us doing the recording, you had told me the story about how you and your dad had actually stayed in the same barracks like 20 years apart.
Right.
Yeah, tell me about that.
My father was in the Army Air Corps in World War II, and they called it points. He didn't have enough points to come home, and so he was in. I'm drawing a blank on his bases. He wasn't stationed at Atsugi. He was there short time, but when I showed him pictures of the base and everything else like this, we figured that we probably slept in the same barracks, 20-some years apart, barracks 353, and stuff like that. And that's where I went to school there for aircrew school. I started out in California, but I went to school and finished up my aircrew school in Japan, it's not Sagami, Atsugi, Japan, the Naval Air Station there. And like I said, we were in the East Camp, they called it, and West Camp was all Marines. And of course, we would always butt our heads with the Marines and stuff.
That's what Navy guys do.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I met this Marine aviator. There was the East Camp was all Marine aviation, and they had different planes and things like this there. And I was out on the runway or the
tarmac?
Tarmac, yes, yeah. I'm drawing a blank. And I saw this Marine aviator, and he came to me and he says, "Why are we fighting?" I said, "Well, because you're in the Marine Corps and I'm in the Navy." He said, "We're aviation Marines. We don't blouse our trousers. We don't cut our hair." He says, "We're just like you guys." And I was very fortunate in everything, and it was fabulous. We had at that time, we flew in the H2 made by Command in Connecticut, It was a small utility helicopter, and it and the Navy version was designed for utility, and they modified it for search and rescue. They put in some bulletproof, panels for the engine, the transmission. The pilot and the co-pilot had door that snapped up. They were bulletproof doors. We had a little plate that we swung up, and we could kneel behind it and stuff.
So you knew where to go just in case.
Yeah.
But it was a small space.
Right, and it was a good helicopter.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was a utility helicopter and stuff like this, and we then deployed to different areas of Asia from there. So
was that your home base then?
it was Atsugi, right? Naval Air Station at Atsugi, Japan. We had a permanent detachment in QB Point, Subic Bay, and that was the jumping off point for the guys for Vietnam. They would deploy aboard guided missile frigates. Like I said, there'd be an 8 to 10 man detachment, one bird. The guided missile frigate had a asphalt steel landing platform on the tail end. The newer ones were upper level, but they had that, and we were there with that and slept where we could. So a lot of times we slept in the cook's quarters or the baker's quarters, and that was nice because for midnight rations, they would bring us back food at night. So
always good to have a baker on a destroyer or a frigate.
Yeah, this was nice. We liked it a lot, and we were very, very close, obviously, to our pilots. We weren't considered like officers and enlisted men. We were considered a crew.
Yeah,
and everything was great and stuff like this. And I remember in the first storm, it wasn't a monsoon, but it was a pretty good storm, and I was all upset because we kept rolling in the troughs of the waves and stuff. And I'm guessing I was like pure white. And this old bosun's mate was there, and an old salt, and he goes, "Hey boy, don't worry about a thing, because we only roll over so far and the masts snap off and it rights itself." But we also, when we were in the storms, our helicopter was back on the little miniature flight deck landing platform, and it was chained down. Well, the junior guy had to go out with a come-along when we were in a storm and made sure that the chains were tight so the helicopter didn't move. And I was very glad that I got seniority quickly.
So you weren't that junior guy that had to do that?
Not very often. We rotated some around and stuff. So
yeah. So what was your? So you were an air crewman, but what was like your specific job?
I was an aviation structural mechanic, an AMS, but I never worked in my rate because I flew.
Okay.
And I had my NECs were both flight NECs and stuff, and it was like it was air crew plus then it was combat search and rescue with the two NECs.
So you went to that SAR school then, the search and rescue school, or
yes, I went to that, but then there was a different one. They came out later with SEER school. And I went back to California from Asia, and I went to the SEER school, and I went to we had switched to a two-engine model, and so I went to plane captain school for the two-engine model, and actually I believe I was the first plane captain from the UH-2C, the two-engine model in the Western Pacific. When I came back to Atsugi and then QB Point and Subic Bay, but we went to SEER school, and I was just amazed at that with how they work that and stuff like this, and we had made sleeping bags and tents out of parachutes, and it was in Warner Springs, and we did all that stuff, and then the aggressors would come through at night, tear our tents down, and they had automatic weapons, firing blanks,
right?
And they would shoot up the thing and start to get you going and stuff like this, and we went there, and they there was a series where we had navigation, and we were taught to navigate, and so we could find our way in case we were shot down. And there was a fresh officer, I put it that way, who knew more than anybody.
Of course.
And we were going back, and we went down, and there's this barbed wire there. Mm-hmm. And they said in the thing, don't, in the briefing, don't cross the barbed wire. And I told this officer that, and he said, I'm a commissioned officer. You do what I say. So we went down over this hill, and they were loading the prisoners into trucks, and we were captured early. So we were there early, and in the compound, and they put us in black boxes, and they would have us kneel and cross our legs and kneel and bend over, and they were like plywood, stuff like this, boxes. They had different ones there. Mm-hmm. And they'd come along, and they seemed to, I'm guessing what they did was, I never asked or anything else like this, but we didn't hear a lot of people speaking English. They had these were all Navy people, yeah. But they had like Mexican Americans, and they had different other ones like this, and they would when they were around us, they didn't speak in English and stuff. They'd come along, and they would pound on the boxes, and you'd have to recite your prisoner number. Mm-hmm. Well, I remember the one time I got in too big of a box. I rolled over and fell asleep. And I pounded on the box, and they pulled me out, and they whacked me. But there was a Red Cross area that you could go and stuff like this and everything else, and it was like a big, huge tent with a wooden platform and stuff. But there was a place that you could sneak out of and escape. Mm-hmm. And another guy told me about that, so I would get that. And if you escaped, you got a ham sandwich and a glass of milk.
Oh,
yeah. So we were greeted that and stuff. So, but we went there, and I think about it. I've been by there, Warner Springs, many years later. I just went by there just recently and saw the sign for Warner Springs for the city. Not the. I'm sure it's long closed. And I thought about my time in SEER school, but
yeah, probably the best ham sandwich you ever ate there too, right?
Yeah, and stuff. But then we went back. I went back to Japan, and we deployed and everything, and we went on different deployments, and things like that, and then we were in Atsugi we were the only Navy helicopter squadron at Atsugi Naval Air Station. And then they had all sorts of other the transport squadrons and everything else like this for the Navy. They had a spy squadron, VQ-1, Fleet Reconnaissance Squadron 1. Mm-hmm. And they flew EC-121s. And so they flew those out of there and did tracking into the Sea of Japan and over North Korea and things like that, and probably down into Vietnam, North Vietnam and stuff. Yeah. But in April of '69, the North Koreans, I think there was like 3 or 4 North Korean MiGs, shot down a EC-121 from Atsugi. It was not on a track. They usually ran with a flight crew of like 12. Mm-hmm. There were 31 people on board. There were a good number of people on board just for flight time. Oh. There were even Marines on board, and they shot it down. And you can look it up and stuff like this because it was there. And they went into the Sea of Japan, and we were diverted north. I was on the USS Dale, and we were diverted north, and we were there, and I thought there was 3 carriers up there at that time, but there was a fellow here in Hillsdale that I met was on another aircraft carrier. He said there were 4 carriers up there. So they were ready to go to war with North Korea. Yeah. And then when we woke up one morning, we were there quite a while searching for, the only body we found, sadly, was the man who was in my squadron in HC-7. He was married to a foreign national, and he was having trouble getting his kids back to the States. So he transferred into VQ1. He was in aviation. He was an AT, an aviation electronics technician. Dick Sweeney was his name. Mm-hmm. He was the only body we found.
So out of all 31 people, you never found anyone?
No, they never found anyone.
Oh my
and
gosh.
then, we, like I said, there was the carriers that were there, and then we woke up one morning and I'll back up a little bit. We had all sorts of planes flying around, and I never realized how big a Russian Bear bomber was. And we had one fly by us, and the tail, the big red star on it, was as big as our helicopter. And the co-pilot just gave us a wave, and I said over the intercom, because we had an M60 machine gun in the left-hand door, the crew door, and I said over the intercom, I said to the crew, I said, "Hey, how about if I just wave this M60 at them?" Well, the pilot, Tim Melikoski, said, "Knight, if you move, we'll kill you."
They don't want to tangle with the Russian Bear.
No, but then after that, everyone left, and we were the only one there, and we didn't have any support ships or anything, so we stayed there, and there was us and a Russian destroyer. Mm-hmm. The Russian destroyer would go back into port every night at Vladivostok, at that far south end.
So you were
close. Yeah, we were up at the north end of North Korea and stuff, and then we would follow them in, and then follow them back out, and we refueled. U.S. military ships refueled side to side with the oilers. They refueled end to end. When we refueled, they would pull behind us and act as a lifeguard in case someone fell overboard or something like this. When they refueled, we pulled behind them and acted as a lifeguard.
Well, that's nice. A little détente back in the 60s.
So yeah, when we were there and stuff like this, but we were quite. The HC-7 was quite a busy squadron. They made just under. They were there from 1967, as I said, in late summer, and they came back to the States, and they were decommissioned in 75 when Saigon fell back to the communists. I was long gone. I left in 1969. I was there 2 years.
Right.
But they made I think it was 148 rescues out of North Vietnam in the area, waters and stuff. But it was good duty, very, very good duty. The camaraderie was unbelievable with the men.
Yeah, you got to have when you're doing that kind of work, you got to have those kind of friendships.
Oh, we were tight, and there was no such thing as, you did treat them with respect, but there was no such thing as officers and enlisted men, because we were all together,
right,
and stuff. And like I said, we flew and had we had a good time, and stuff like that, and off duty, we went back to the Philippines or back to Japan. Of course, then you treated them with respect and everything. But it was real good duty. I remember once back up in Japan, anyone could fly left seat in a helicopter. You can have a enlisted man. So I was dragged out of my bunk, out of my rack, on a Sunday morning by an officer I knew very, very well. And he wanted me to fly with him. So I had thought he needed flight time, for the month and stuff. Normally they don't. Well, I can't remember if it was his girlfriend or his wife was there. She was, he knew I was from, my family lived in New Hampshire. His wife or girlfriend, whatever she was in the I think she was Miss New Hampshire.
Oh. And
so he took her on the helicopter. When we were airborne, he had me leave and go in the back. We were in the H2, and had his girlfriend come up and sit in the co-pilot seat in the left seat. And so we flew just around the base and stuff like that. And then we got back and we changed and stuff. So it's always interesting. I have a lot of, funny stories.
Oh yeah, a lot of good memories from
Oh yeah.
from there. Did you guys fly a lot of search and rescue missions then
Yes.
while you were there?
Yes.
Okay, so it was.
Yeah. We like I said, we went to. We were out of at Sugi, or out of QB Point, and then we go fly off the guided missile frigates, the DLGs, and we always told the pilots whenever we briefed the pilots, the aircraft carrier pilots, that if you get hit, get feet wet. In other words, bail out over the ocean, like the Tonkin Gulf. Your chances of survival skyrocket if you do that. So we always had two crewmen. Like I said, we were in a small helicopter. First crewman stayed in the helicopter, maintained radio contact, the hoist, and the M60 machine gun on the left-hand door. Plus we had a rack of one shoulder-mounted M60 and then some M16s on the right-hand side. And everyone had, 45 and stuff like this with them. But we always had a guy that was always dressed as a swimmer. He had, the big swim fins, ocean-going swim fins, and a mask, and a vest. The vest had a small flotation thing in it, had a D-ring in it that you could hook up yourself to the, to when you got the pilot, and a big K-bar knife, and of course the little CO bottles and stuff. And it's interesting. Later on. We had a guy, he's dead now. Phil Poisson was his name, ran the reunion association for my overseas helicopter squadron. Phil Poisson lived in San Diego, put out to everyone, did anyone have this swimmer's vest? They wanted to put it on display. And my wife said, isn't that what the kids used to play with when we lived in Riverview? So I found it in the garage here in Hillsdale, and I went out there and I took the knife out and the CO bottles out, and it had my name embroidered on it, USN on the other side, and I sent it off to Phil Poisson, and the USS Midway is decommissioned. It's a floating museum in San Diego Harbor, and he gave it to them for display. Well, my wife and I went out there, and I went all over the ship and stuff like this. And there's three of my helicopters on the flight deck, and the H2, the H3, and the H46 are on the flight deck. And I went down and asked the people down, and they had a display in the hangar deck, if my perchance my stuff was there. And he says, no. He says, I bet you it's still in storage. So my brother and his family have a place in California, Southern California. He lives in New Hampshire still, but we went out there to visit him, and we went there, and I took my brother there. And on the flight deck, as I said, there's an H2, H3, and H46. And then down in the hangar area, there's a display for search and rescue, and there's it's all enclosed in plexiglass, so no one can touch anything.
Yeah.
And there's my first skipper's coffee mug, and there's a copy of the Medal of Honor certificate from one of our pilots, Clyde Lassen, that won the Medal of Honor. And there's some other things there and everything else. And over in this other side, there's this enclosed area where is this swimmer's vest, but it's turned around so you can't see my name on it, for whatever reason. So, but it's there. So your vest lives on. 15 seconds of fame.
There you go. So when I go out there, when I go to California, I'm gonna go see your vest.
Yeah, see it's cool. Lloyd Parthamer's coffee cup and everything, and like I said, there's and Clyde Lassen. He was just such a nice man. Died of cancer later in life down in Florida, not service related.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was nice, and like I said, I love flying, and it was just really, really great. We as I told you before, we even got to fly Bob Hope.
Yeah. So I think before we leave Vietnam, you need to tell me what's this Bob Hope story all about?
I shared a house out in Japan in the what they call the Japanese economy with a fellow who was in charge of assigning all enlisted crewmen throughout the squadron, and he and I were best friends. And so when they brought the time came up to fly Bob Hope, we flew him, of course, in the H-46. And as I said before, I was a first crewman in the H-2. I wasn't a first crewman in the H-46, but anyone can fly second crewman. And so I got to fly Bob Hope in 1968. And he was such a nice man. And most Hollywood stars, their kids didn't go in the military.
Right.
But Bob Hope and his wife Dorothy, their children were all adopted. And his son Kelly, I think that was his middle name. It wasn't his first name. Kelly Hope was a Navy corpsman, and he was at a time stationed at the big Army hospital in Zama, Japan. And so, we were assigned to fly Bob Hope, and we were there, and Jerry Colonna and Martha Ray and Anne Margaret and a bunch of them. I can't remember all the stars were there.
Anne Margaret's the only one that matters to me.
Yeah, and stuff. And they were all dancing on the flight deck with them and stuff like this. And it was just fabulous. And then, as you know, at the shows, all the wounded sat in the front row.
Yeah.
Well, we sat to the right or to the left. There's four of us: pilot, co-pilot, two enlisted flyers, and we were there at his shows and stuff like this. But later on in life, and we were living out here in Hillsdale, my two adult children bought me the DVDs, Bob Hope, The Vietnam Years. And second DVD, in comes this H-46 helicopter, number 50, with my squadron's emblem on it, with some goofy guy hanging out the front door window.
No.
So there's my 15 seconds of fame. But he was, like I said, so nice to us. The first stop we made, we got out of the helicopter, and he had the stars line up, and he took us down and introduced us to every single star. And we just felt like we were something special, and he made us feel so great. And he was such a nice man.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, listeners, we need your help to keep the Veterans Archives podcast going. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes, and we provide this service completely free to veterans. Your support helps us record, share, and archive these incredible stories so future generations never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. Visit veteransarchives.org to contribute today. Help us honor their service by ensuring their voices are heard. And thank you for your support, and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country. Well, that's a great experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you meet people like that and they're not so nice, but it sounds like this was...
Oh, Bob Hope was just fabulous.
Yeah.
And all the entertainers were there. They were really good people and stuff like this. And it's interesting. We had parachute riggers were the guys who did all of our sewing for us. And my name tag, my leather name tag on my flight jacket, and then the ones on Velcro that I had on my flight suits, they had my had aircrew wings on it, and had at that time I was just an airman, AN, but it said P Knight on it. And there was an incident that happened in the Philippines, and I kind of saved this one parachute rigger's butt for something. And he told me, anything you want, you got it. And I said, you know something? I'd like my name tag to say Pat Knight, not P Knight. So I did that, and I'm helping one of the stars off the down the steps of the 46.
Yeah.
And she grabbed me by my shoulders and gave me a big smooch, a big kiss, and asked me, Pat Knight, how have you been? I thought she remembered me from before. And I showed this and told this story years later when I was in the police department in Riverview. And I had some police over and stuff like this. And I told them this story, and they said, Hey, blankety blank. She didn't remember you. She read your name tag. Burst my bubble.
All those years you were believing the wrong thing. So you
Burst my bubble.
Yeah. So you were in for how many years then? 2?
I was in the Navy for just under 4 years. I was 3 years, 9 months. I got an early out in September of 70 because I was registered to go to the University of New Hampshire.
Okay.
And stuff. So I got early out. So I spent 3 years in multiple months in active duty. Of course, 2 years in active duty and stuff. But and if it hadn't been for the Navy, I wouldn't be sitting here. My wife is from Wyandotte, Michigan. She was going to Western Michigan University at the time. And her and her girlfriend, both from Wyandotte, and they went to Western, went out to California, to Imperial Beach in San Diego area to see her sister-in-law, who was her best friend in Wyandotte High School. Her brother was in the Navy. He was on the USS Bonhomme Richard, the aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
He did catapults. And I met my future wife on a blind date in Imperial Beach, California. So if I hadn't been for the Navy, because came back, and I was with a kid from from Toledo, and he flew in the H-3. He flew aboard the carriers with the H-3, and but we went. He said he wanted to stop in these apartments in Imperial Beach to see his buddy from Toledo. So we went in to see him, and his Scott Boyer was the man's name. This is his wife Sharon. He was out on an aircraft carrier, which was my future brother-in-law's aircraft carrier, the Bonhomme Richard, the Bonnie Dick. They were doing carrier quals, getting ready to go back to Vietnam. And she said, boy, have I got 2 girls for you guys to meet. How about tonight? Well, it was Sunday night. We had all been together up in La Jolla, up at one of the guys' parents' place. We had a big party and stuff. We didn't even destroy the parents' place.
You didn't wreck anything?
No, we were good. And she said, how about tonight? And I said, how about Tuesday? We both flew. Tuesday night, we got flight pay. They'll think we're rich. So we met them, and he ended up, Ron Stahl was his name. And we ended up meeting the 2 ladies. Rosemary Adamus was the other lady. My wife was Kathy Lake at that time. And they, we met them and everything else like this. And Ron Stahl, like I said, was from Toledo, and he ended up marrying Rose. Sadly, he was killed in a motorcycle accident in Toledo.
Oh.
Not his fault.
Yeah.
And stuff, but she's made out well. She was a teacher as well as, same as my wife. And she married her principal in her second marriage, and she had 2 kids, and they're all, I'm sure, grown up now and everything.
Yeah.
So, but it all sort of turned out.
So you met you were from Pennsylvania. You met a gal from Michigan out in California. Sounds like the date went pretty well, but then she went home and you went.
I went
home
back to after I got out of the Navy. I went to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And we got there, and we did long distance telephoning and writing between Concord, New Hampshire, and Wyandotte, Michigan. And we knew each other 13 months, and we got married. We got married in Wyandotte, and we settled in downriver in Wyandotte, and I worked at various car dealerships and stuff as service manager and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I.
Well, before we get too far, though, I want to point something out to people listening to this: is that when you're talking long distance at that time, it was long distance call, so you paid for the call or you wrote letters,
Right?
And 13-month long distance relationship, looking at it from today's perspective, seems like, wow, that kind of happened kind of quick. But you really get to know someone when you handwrite a letter to them, right? I mean, is that what happened?
Yes, and we still have a good number of those letters here, and stuff like this. And I did go back and forth, and she came to New Hampshire and met my parents. We did go back and forth, and I came to Michigan and everything else. And her father was in the Navy in World War II, and as I mentioned before, my father was in the Army Air Corps in World War II, And both my parents were teachers. My father-in-law worked for Detroit Edison. And we got married in Wyandotte, like I said, 13 months after we met. And we actually, my parents still owned their home in Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And so we went back there, which was a big mistake. And she was very, very nice to me, my wife, my brand new bride. And we stayed there for a very short time, and then we came back to Michigan. And then I worked at some car dealers as like the maintenance manager and things like this at car dealers and stuff, and parts manager. And then in 1973, I was hired on the Riverview Police Department.
Now, is this something you had, like, always wanted to do, or is this just something that kind of like, oh, this looks like a good opportunity?
I did something, and I had applied to Michigan State Police and stuff, and I think it was probably from me working in the government with being in the Navy and stuff like this, and my parents were teachers and government workers and things like this, and I just applied to like I said, the Michigan State Police and Riverview Police, and I was I'll back up one step. I was like I said, service manager at South Point Dodge in Taylor, Michigan, and I was golfing on the Riverview Golf Course, which is still there. The pro came out, and he was one of the teachers in Riverview, and he said that your guy didn't show up, and this guy didn't show up. I'm going to pair you with him. Is that okay? I said, sure. I'm a terrible golfer, but we'll do it. And the man was it was a part-time mayor of the city of Riverview. Chet Belak was his name. And so we golfed. And he asked me what I did and everything else like this, and like I said, I had applied to Michigan State Police and everything else like this. And he said, he asked me if you ever think about being a policeman. I said, yes, I did. And he says, well, we're hiring. He says, but I voted against it because we have too many policemen. So I applied to Riverview Police, and I was hired, and that was 1973.
And you didn't list him as a reference, did you?
No.
So and you worked there for how long?
32 years.
Oh gosh, so you had quite a career.
Right, and I retired as chief of police. As I joke with people, I should have stayed in the union.
I've heard that story.
Politicians drove me crazy.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I did everything. I from patrol work to all the way up to chief of police. I did. I worked in traffic for many years. Ran the traffic bureau, as they called it. I was just a patrolman, but I did all the school programs and things like that. And it was interesting and stuff. I worked in the detective bureau, and then I worked worked the road as a for a short while. They rotated shifts every 7 days. So it got tough on you and your body, tough on you and your family and stuff. But I worked for 32 years. I probably worked the majority of them straight day shift with the detective bureau and things like that. And I things came back around. I mean, always, good stuff for me. I was there and stuff like this. And then we had I worked all the, I was in charge of the auxiliary police, as I said before. So I went to all the basketball games, football games, and things like that. And they had a Catholic high school in Riverview. They did not have their own football field. They utilized Riverview's public school football field. So I took my auxiliary police and I went to their games and worked their games. Well, I was in, of the opinion that you're nice to people and stuff, especially kids. if you caught kids doing something, you didn't lock them up. You kicked them in the butt. It's a small town, so you contacted their parents and stuff.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, and if you caught kids with beer, you make them pour it out, and, and rant and rave and scream at them. And I went through non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hey, I'm cured. Here in Michigan at Henry Ford Jackson, Henry Ford Allegiance. Mm-hmm. And I was getting some very nasty, I had, I said non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, very nasty chemotherapy because my cancer was very fast growing. And so I was about to get my first chemo infusion. I'm lying on the table, and this infusion nurse is there, and she's about to poke me with this needle with R-CHOP, and that's the acronym for all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like nasty stuff. I could not kiss my wife for a number of days. This is gross, but I urinated. My urinated orange. Mm-hmm. I couldn't even let my dog lick me because the stuff radiated through my skin.
Right.
But this nurse leans down and looks at me, and she said, "I know you. I remember you. You made us pour our beer out." She was from Roselle, Michigan, went to Gabriel Richard High School, and I caught him in the parking lot with beer, I guess, and made them pour it out and kicked their butts and sent them home to their parents.
This is not the time you want to remember that story, right? While she's getting ready to poke you with a needle, though.
Yeah, but it was funny. It was funny how things go around and stuff, but it was great. And like I said, guys from my squadron, said, your stuff, is it related to dioxin? I said, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's the right type. I said, but I don't care. I'm cured. Yeah. So I didn't go to the VA. I do have, I do have a 10% disability for hearing.
Right.
So from helicopter jet engine noise or machine gun noise, they said.
So you went through your cancer treatment while you were still a police officer then? Or
no, we were out here. I was retired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to ask you a question about your time because, a lot of my family friends are police officers. In fact, I worked part-time for a while, and, cops have a million stories. And we don't have time for a million stories, but I would like to know, like, when you think back on your time doing police work, what's like maybe one or two things that really like stick out in your mind that you're either proud of or that just something that you remember when you think back on that time?
Well, I was very, very proud to do, and like I said, work with the kids and work with the people and stuff like this. And I had very, very close ties, not just because my wife was a teacher, very close ties to the school district and everything else like this. But Riverview was just a fabulous, fabulous place to work. Mm-hmm. But in those days, it was Michigan state law that police officers had to live in the city they served. So that helped me out tremendously, being from Pennsylvania and not being from downriver in Riverview. So you got to know everyone. Yeah. And it was, when I retired, they had a retirement party for me. I was very thankful for that. I had well over 200 people come to my retirement party. I had, of course, federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, county, local, my own people come, and stuff like this. But the amount of citizens, especially older people from the downriver area that paid $25 a ticket to come to my retirement party, I stood at the podium and I cried. And my wife just said to me, maybe it's because you did a good job and stuff. And I have great memories of the Riverview Police Department. It was just a fabulous place to work. I stay in contact with a lot of people there. The little side note, one of the former graduates of Riverview is a guy by the name of Lloyd Carr Jr. He is a former head football coach at University of Michigan. Mm-hmm. Before Harbaugh, he was in 1997. He took him to the national championship, and he's such a nice man. And sadly, the last 3 times I've seen him, and I've seen him a lot since then, have been at funerals. His second wife passed away. I did see him at my kid's graduation because his stepson went to Grand Valley State with our daughter, and the guy I got hired with, Riverview, he just passed away. So Lloyd was at his funeral. He lives out here in the area, and he doesn't drive. His family drives him, but he's just such a nice man. But the people of Riverview they accepted me, and they were just so nice, and they treated me like one of their own. And the school district where my wife worked and the city employees were all integrated. We were in the same credit union and things like that. And I forgot all about it, but just before I retired as a police officer, I was named Police Officer of the Year, and they had the awards ceremony where I got the thing around my neck and stuff because I just found the DVD downstairs. And but like I said, the memories of working in the city of Riverview, and with the people and the citizens. The citizens were just so great, and sadly, like I said, police officers don't have to live in where they serve anymore, because when John Engler was governor, he changed it.
Right.
Which it should be, and now they've gone outside. The last 2 chiefs of police that have been there have not been come up through the ranks. The guy there now works in another downriver city, and they had another one from Dearborn Police that was there. And sadly, the people that are moving up the police, they can't do that because there's nothing at the top anymore.
Right.
So it's sad.
Well, I think some of your best leaders come from inside the ranks there. Well,
yeah, just like when I was a chief of police, when I was deputy chief, and then when I was named chief of police, I looked at the lieutenants that were there, and I knew them all very, very well. I got along with them and everything else like this. But I thought, I don't think I want to work side by side with them on a regular basis like that. So I went down and chose a sergeant. He was a detective sergeant. I worked with him when I was in the detective bureau. I knew that he was rock solid, and he would have my back, and he would do the job. So I named him deputy chief. I tried to hurt some people's feelings and probably upset some people, but then he became chief when I retired.
Right.
So.
Well, you're the chief. You get to make those decisions.
Right.
Right.
And I, like I said, I really enjoyed police work. It was Riverview was very safe. It was the downriver communities were very, very safe, and it was nice. And I remember that other than at the range, I fired my gun one time. There was 2 fellows that had escaped from one of the prisons in Jackson, and they had stolen a car, and they were downriver, and we saw them, and we were chasing them, and we went to. They drove into Trenton, a city south of us, and it was the 4th of July, and it was a Sunday. I remember that distinctly. And I drove in, and they get out of their car, and they're running ahead of me. And they were running into a court, and I'm now in the city of, like I said, in the city of Trenton. Yeah. And I'm chasing them, and I pulled out my weapon and hollered, "Hold or I'll shoot." But I had the time and presence of mind. I looked over the shoulder of the guy as he's running. He's armed, but he's not pointing his gun at me. There's a man sitting in his. He's in a court. He's sitting in his family room, I think it was family room, and he's got like a bathrobe on, reading the Sunday paper. And he's right over the shoulder of the man I had, so I fired into the ground and blew up some guy's zucchini patch. And it was funny.
You can't do that anymore either.
No.
No warning shots, right?
No. But I did that, so that was. But they kept going, and the Trenton cops caught him. Yeah. But it was funny.
So the whole time you're on the police force, you had children, right?
Yes.
And how many children did you have?
Two. We have a son and a daughter.
Okay, and they grew up in Riverview with
They went to school and graduated high school, Riverview. Yes.
those poor kids. Their mom's a teacher and their dad's a cop. They can't get away with anything.
No, but they never. Living in the city of Riverview, it was good for them. They never faced any adversity from their fellow students or anything else like this, and it was a good place to raise a family.
Yeah.
It really was and stuff, and we enjoy it. And I used to go to meetings once in a while down that way from out here. And I haven't been in a while. Last time I was there was for the fellow that his funeral was at Gabriel Richard Church in Riverview. But before that, I hadn't been there in a while. But I went to a police meeting, and I was on Fort Street, south of Pennsylvania Road, which Pennsylvania Road is the border of Southgate and Riverview. And the traffic was so heavy and so choked up. I'm used to the out here. Actually, you have to wait to some areas out here. You have to wait till the Amish move their wagons off the road so you can get by them.
Yeah, if you're watching this or listening to this, we are in rural Michigan. It was quite a drive getting out here. So yeah.
Yeah, and it is funny. It was my wife and I moved here by accident, blindly.
Yeah.
We had fallen in love with South Carolina, and we loved Riverview. We figured when we retired, we'd stay in Riverview and maybe go down to South Carolina for a month or so in the winter. And we're coming back from, I always took her to the Thomas Edison Inn in Port Huron for her birthday. And we're coming back with her birthday on 94, Interstate 94. And she said to me, I'd like to buy a place on a lake. I pulled over to the shoulder of the road and I said, "What are you talking about?" We have two kids. Our son's older and our daughter. We're very, very close to our family. And our daughter, actually, to this day, is one of my wife's best friends, if not her best friend. She was pregnant with our first grandchild.
Oh.
We are going nowhere. So
Right.
we made came up this way and then made a way in here. And we did not want to go up north. Nothing against up north, but we didn't want to go up north.
Just wasn't your thing.
No. We had been there with her parents and stuff like this, but we just went. So we came this way into Jackson County, into Hillsdale County, and we looked at on the internet 50-some places and looked at 30-some in person, and we found this place here. This is a man-made lake. It's controlled by a dam.
Oh, okay.
And we found this here in Hillsdale, and Hillsdale County is hugely populated by deer. It's over 600 square miles, but there's only like 40,000 people. And at that time we moved here. I still stay in contact with law enforcement and stuff. One of the conservation officers told me, he says, "Yeah, there's 40,000 people." He said, "But the last deer count was 56,000." And
You're outnumbered.
I've hit 3 since I've been here.
Yeah.
And but we absolutely love it here in Hillsdale. It's I'm, like I said before, I'm involved in the community a couple different ways, and my wife's involved with the community and everything. And then our daughter and son-in-law, because my wife retired 2 years after me from teaching. They lived in our house here for a year and built a house close by us. And so she had 2 daughters graduate from high school near here. But we love living in Hillsdale County in the country.
So let's talk about that a little bit too. So you retired in 2005, right? So your wife would have retired in 2007.
8.
Or 8. Okay, so it's been almost 20 years of retirement for both of you. Other than kind of moving here and setting up, what have you been up to?
Well, we came here and I was involved in Kiwanis for a while. One of our neighbors got us involved in Kiwanis. And so I was involved in that, and I liked that part in giving back. Well, Kiwanis has a state trooper camp that they have in the summertime. And so I was put in charge with that, being a retired police officer. The kids go through intermediate school district, and they go to, they have a state police academy for the kids. It's 1 week in the summer. And so I was in charge of sending the high school kids from Riverview that qualified And so I did that. And then I had some health issues, so I did continue in Kiwanis. I was there quite a few years. But I've been involved with the emergency management, and public safety here in Hillsdale County. It's the 911 board, they call it, and I've been involved in that for 18 years. And so we have a monthly meeting. I had one yesterday, and they meet with all the public safety. There's police, fire, and ambulance people there. And then there's some civilians like myself who have had connections with police or fire and things like that. And my wife, she wasn't doing it so much now, but she was involved with the Hillsdale County Foundation and some other people here with Student of the Year scholarships for the county. High school.
Kind of state in education, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we go to the perennial park, the Hillsdale County Senior Center, and we go there to exercise, and they have a very, very nice place. They have a state-of-the-art exercise area downstairs and everything. And they had some issues with some county commissioners. They wanted to cut funding back for the senior center, even though they were on a 14-year millage, and they couldn't. They're nice people, the county commissioners, but they didn't understand. They thought that the county, that the Hillsdale County Perennial Park was just Meals on Wheels. It didn't provide other things, food, and they have in the gymnasium, and they're gonna build a walking track and things like this. And so I went, and they were meeting with the former director of the Hillsdale County Senior Center, and they asked a couple of people to come and speak there because the county commissioners were there. And like I said, the county commissioners really didn't have a clue of what they did. They thought it was just Meals on Wheels. And so I got up and spoke and talked to them. And there was another retired doctor that was there. He's a good friend. His daughter was the director of the perennial park at that time. And they got up and spoke and stuff like this. And so like a week or so later, I had one of they had changed the hierarchy, and one of the new assistant director came to me and asked me, said, we'd like you to get on the board because we have an opening for Perennial Park. I said, oh. I said, that's nice. I said, I appreciate that. It keeps me busy and stuff. Yeah. And I thought they just wanted insight from someone that exercised downstairs and worked out and could tell the people about that. And they said, yes, that's it. But we also, because you stood up to the county commissioners. And I said, whoops, I got a big mouth. And so I've been on the Hillsdale County Perennial Park senior board for a year and a half. And I love it and stuff. And they do a lot of things for the seniors and things like this. And it's really, really great and stuff. So
really, I mean, if you think about it, your life has been service to your country, to your community, to whatever community you're in. You've continued that service
right
throughout,
and in the county and just the community that I give to them, but they give back as well.
Yeah,
and I feel blessed that they do and everything else like this. And there's a wide variety of people that are on the senior center board. There's bankers. There's they have one county commissioner, just a new one now. They have different other people through the community, different areas and stuff like this. And it's really nice, and it's good for the people. And they have a vision to do a lot of different things, to build some housing units out at Perennial Park, and like I said, put a walking track in. They have a fabulous exercise area. They have they have fundraisers for new exercise equipment. They have called Subs for Fun, and so you buy subs. So my wife and I both, we of course participate and buy subs, and people go make subs up, and you go pick them up and you eat them. And all the profits goes to purchasing new equipment and things like that. So it's great.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, actually,
it's a nice facility for the citizens.
Right. So do you think you'll ever actually retire?
No.
You're just going to keep doing stuff?
I like it. And like I said, I try to go to the senior center. I was going to go this morning, but I just been too busy.
Yeah.
I just graduated from the physical therapy, as I said before, with my hip replacement. So I just got back into it. And I try to go 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I said, my wife goes, and she also does cardio drumming as well as exercising and stuff. And she does that. And they have fabulous programs there and stuff like this. And they have different things. And every one of the people that work downstairs are certified trainers, so they know all the equipment. And if you have any questions or have issues or anything else like this, they're there to help you and stuff. So it's a neat facility and stuff, and it's just so fabulous. Out in the country, it's a jewel. It's a gem.
I think it'd be very easy to be out in the country and not do anything because there's just nothing to do. So it sounds like you guys have created a great space for that. Yeah,
they're good. And as I said, we retired to the lake here and stuff. And actually, this house was only a couple years old, and the people we bought from, sadly, the lady just died. Her husband died a while ago. They were elderly. The lot next door went for sale, but we've been here 20 years. Yeah. And he felt closed in that somebody was going to buy the lot and build. And these people built it probably about 7 years ago. But still, there's space between us and everything. And they're fabulous neighbors. And people next door on the other side, they are still working. They live in the downriver area. They're going to retire soon. But they're fabulous people too. But there's great people, residents on the lake. Mm-hmm. So it's nice. They do a lot of things like fishing derbies and junk like this here and stuff. So
always something to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about a lot of things. We've covered everything from being born and growing up in Pennsylvania to the blind date that changed everything. And now you're retired, but you're not retired. You've lived quite a great life. You have children and grandchildren, and maybe you're inching up into that great grandchildren area at some point. Not yet.
No, we have the oldest girl is 22. She's or 21. She's up at Northern Michigan University, and she's there. And we have two that are graduating high school this year. Yeah, one here and one in Grand Rapids. The one in here is going to go to Grand Valley State, where her parents went and her uncle went, and the other one is going to college in the Grand Rapids area. And then we have one that's just entering high school. So
wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So we got we got lots of kids and stuff like this, and both our son and our daughter are in the medical field and stuff. So they're there, and we're proud.
Serving as well.
Yeah. We're proud of them and everything else like this. And my wife keeps me in line. Yeah. It keeps me straight. And the whip marks I have on my back are tremendous.
So how long have you been married then? I didn't do the math.
53 years.
53 years.
No, 54 years. My apologies.
Don't want to get that wrong.
1971. We got married, 54 years. Okay. We were both very young. We got married. And 54 years. And we celebrated our 50th with a big celebration with the kids and everything else. And we do a lot of things. I have two brothers. One had passed away in 2001, the one next to me. And I have a brother in New Hampshire, I have a brother in Wisconsin. And we, very, very close. My brothers have been here. Like I said before, his wife inherited the place out in California. And so we meet out there a lot of times and go there. And my brother took us to San Diego because we had told him about the USS Midway. Yeah. And he wanted to see it. He's my younger brother now. And I thought it was like an hour away. It wasn't. It's 3 hours away. And my brother drove, and I felt so terrible. But we went there, and he was very happy to see, the aircraft carrier, which I wasn't stationed on an aircraft carrier. Yeah. But very happy to see the ship and my helicopters and everything else like this. So but we're very close. To my brothers and my nieces and nephews and our children and grandchildren. My wife is on the phone with our daughter on a constant basis. We text back and forth on a constant basis, and everything else like this. And our son and daughter have been here a lot. So
That's great. It's great. So, as we kind of wrap up our conversation this afternoon, there's always one question that I ask everyone, and that is, looking back on your life, if someone's listening to this years from now, the dog wants to talk too. Years from now, so what message would you have for people?
Life is great. Like I said, I've been through some medical issues, and things like that, but I'm blessed. Family is great. It's absolutely fabulous and things like this. And but life is what you make of it. And you can't get down. There's bumps in the road, but you always have to pick yourself up, by your bootstraps and keep on moving for health reasons or any other kind of reason and stuff like this. And like I said, I've been blessed because I have a family that's so supportive of me and supportive of all of us together. Mm-hmm. That we know. But my extended family as well, my mother's side of the family especially, I get electronic birthday cards from. I have two uncles and one aunt on my mother's side are still alive, and I talk to them, mm-hmm. through electronically, or I'll call them and stuff. And then I have a cousin who's my cousin, my first cousin, but he's our son's age stuff, and he's been here and stuff like this. He lives in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. He worked in the car design industry. And so he comes out and goes to, like, a lot of times to the Detroit Car Show and stuff. And so he's come here a number of times. And I've had my one aunt and uncle they live now in the Adirondacks in upstate New York. Yeah. They've come here and stuff like this. So we're very close to all of our family, extended and the close family, and talk to them and deal with them on a regular basis.
Yeah, sounds like family's very important.
It is. It's sad when you. I know of some people that nothing against getting divorced. I'm very very proud that she stuck by me all these years, and being a cop and everything else like this. But some people that I know have had divorces, and they have they don't know their children, they don't know their grandchildren, and stuff like this. And there's nothing you can do to change anything like that. All you can do is just look back and reflect on your own.
Yeah. And
stuff like this, like the picture behind you. Those are right behind your head.
Oh, let me turn around here. Oh, yeah.
Down to the left is our son and our daughter.
Uh-huh.
Up to the left upper are the 4 granddaughters. Up in the upper right is the 4 granddaughters again. And then the youngest one up there giving her thumbs up.
Uh-huh. And I see Sasha's got a prominent picture there, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we actually my son and his ex-wife gave us that. So we, look at that and reflect on that. And we have tons of pictures, like going downstairs, just tons and tons of pictures of family members and things like this and stuff. So,
yeah. Well, I hear Sasha's giving her input as well for this. So, yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit here and talk with me and share your story. I'm sure people are going to hear this and learn something from it.
I don't know about learning something from it, but it is interesting. I've had a fabulous life, and I'm so blessed that and many people are, most people are, and things like this. And obviously, you are. I've listened to what your background is and everything else like this, but it's life is neat. Life is neat.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Veterans Archives podcast. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and honor the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Don't forget, you can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream past episodes anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as I've said before, any place you can find a podcast, you can find the Veterans Archives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and across all social media. Every share helps us reach more people and preserve more stories. The Veterans Archives podcast is a nonprofit initiative, and our mission is simple: to give veterans a voice and ensure their stories are never forgotten. This service is completely free for veterans because their sacrifices deserve to be recognized and remembered. You want to help? Follow us, spread the word, and if you know a veteran with a story to tell, send them our way. Visit us at veteransarchives.org to learn more about how you can get involved. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, thank you to all the veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Until next time, take care, and we will see you on the next episode of the Veterans Archives Podcast.